Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I will be your host, Allison, and with me today, as always, is Brian, pretty much always. And we are going to be covering a new video from Tim Pool in which they discuss the right wingers roasting women. And in the context, I suppose, of the right having a woman problem again. I think that's the implication, right? And yeah, so that's that's what we're going to be discussing, and we're going to look at, is it really anti-woman to roast women? I would argue that it isn't. It 100% isn't. But anyway, we'll get into it. First, before we do that, I want to remind everyone that if you want to send us a comment, the very best way to do so is at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You get the full benefit of whatever, not sending your comment through YouTube's comment enhancement system, and we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send. So it is good for both of us. Once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a comment that we will respond to on air. So anything that you want to call out, anything that you want to add some context to, any kind of interesting thing you want to say in response to what you're hearing here, feedthebadger.com/justthetip is the best way to do it. And once again, we haven't started our monthly fundraiser yet, but it will be at feedthebadger.com/support soon, very soon. And I'm going to try something really special this month, so I might as well give you guys a heads up. We are doing a silk screened poster as an incentive to help us out. So look forward to that. That should be available pretty soon. And yeah, so that's sort of the news of the day from Honey Badger Radio. So why don't we, shall we just drop right into it, as it were?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So trying out this new auto transitioning thing I did.
Okay.
Hopefully it works. So here we go. Hold on to your butts. I'm gonna hit play. This is it's about 10 minutes, 11 minutes long. There isn't a lot here. I think most of it's pretty front loaded. And this is on Tim Pool's podcast. He works with Tenet Media. And it is Tim Pool, Rachel Wilson, Alex Stein, and there was another woman. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name because I never heard of her. But the other three I have seen around the interwebs, as it were. And I've even met Tim Pool a couple times. But anyway, and yeah, they're discussing the right, I guess, and some people on the right have a problem with women. So let's start the video.
But there's the anti-woman thing on the right, and Rachel knows this because her husband is, had a huge boost in his career, basically going on these podcasts, making fun of women, and people love that. People love that content, which kind of blows my mind how much people like.
Oh, it switched to you because you sighed.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
See, I told you. You gotta.
All right, okay. I'll shut up. Oh my God, are you making fun of me, Brian? Are you criticizing me?
It's very
That's
sensitive.
Not acceptable.
All right, I'm gonna hit play again. We're gonna try this again. Okay.
And I'm
women to be made fun of.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing is he doesn't really make fun of them. He simply asks questions that expose the fact that they don't know why they believe what they believe, and they don't know why it is that they say the things that they say and do the things that they do. So.
Yeah, that's like the newest popular thing.
All right. Good point. Right there. All right. He is not actively doing anything. He is simply giving them enough rope for them to hang themselves. And honestly, this is a conversation that needs to happen. Because if men aren't having this conversation with women, then women will be having it with whoever takes over the smoking ruin of this freaking culture. When the basic fundamental institutions that we have disappear because they're not being properly maintained, and they aren't. Like, we're already having issues with utilities. We're already seeing the fractures in the world reserve currency. These are problems that are on the horizon. They may not have arrived yet, but they are coming. And if men do not have these honest conversations with women about women's effect on the greater world and the systems that they currently have majority power over, and that's the thing, that women's voting powers, they are the ones who are now deciding the course of our society. They are the majority of the voters. And there is more conversation about how being the majority of the voters means women are not responsible for a damn thing than there is conversation about how being the majority of the voters makes women responsible for nearly everything. Right? That conversation needs to happen. And if men don't have it with women, then we are going to earn our destruction. You cannot have people in charge with absolutely no feedback over what they are doing, who they are doing it to, and the ultimate consequences of their choices. And this is what's so infuriating about men on the right, because they have the same problem. They are seeped in this kind of benevolent sexism of low expectations, like you can't disturb the little ladies. You can't insult them. You can't criticize them. Well, if you can't insult and criticize women, if you can't batter them, I mean batter them in terms of their behavior. I don't mean like physically. I mean in terms of words. Batter their actions, criticize every aspect in minutia, and include even their personal choices and appearance. If you cannot criticize everything about women, then they do not belong anywhere near power, period. And if you cannot criticize the unique question or the unique issues that women have, because this is something that we don't want to talk about, but and it is fairly true that women have rarely occupied positions of power throughout history. One should ask why, but if that's the case, they also haven't had the same level of scrutiny when in power as men do, by definition. If a king screws up, he's facing peasants, a peasant insurrection or an insurrection by his nobles. Like, there are checks and balances to every single system, unless you're talking about like ultimately like a completely unjust dictatorial system. But those don't last very long. They rarely last more than a few years or a generation. All right. So men have experienced the process of being highly criticized. We have enshrined these checks and balances on men's behavior into law. We recognize men's sexual aggression against women, their domestic violence aggression against. We are only in the first bare stages of recognizing women's aggression against men and now we're in a situation where women can aggress against men on a society-wide scale, which is basically feminism. Because saying that men oppress women is aggression against men. So, and nowhere are we saying, okay, we need to have this conversation, and it is completely legitimate to criticize every single aspect of women, period, full stop. If they do not want to be criticized, they don't get into the public, period. The end. Because I will not be beholden to a group of people who cannot be criticized. Period. I will not be beholden to their choices, and neither should. And the thing is that as a woman, I'm not going to be as beholden to the choices of female voters as men will be, because the government still recognizes a level of autonomy from expectation of service that for me as a woman, and it does not for men. Right? So that's the final thing. We need to make it perfectly socially acceptable to criticize women. And we need to recognize that it is not anti-woman to do so. It is, in fact, pro-woman, because criticism is an invitation to become more as a person, to develop yourself in the context of an external standard that you have to live up to. And honestly, I know this has become a rant. I really appreciate Rachel Wilson actually shutting him down there. So I appreciate her doing that. And this has become sort of a rant taking off on that, because like conservative men, you got to get rid of that. Like you have to understand that a society cannot exist without any kind of criticism of women or recognition of the problems that they bring uniquely as women. That doesn't mean that women can't have power, they can't have the vote. It means that they must be subject to legitimate criticism. And honestly, since you can't really tell the difference between legitimate and illegitimate, they should just be subject to criticism. And I do not mean that there should be in any way aggressed against physically, but verbal criticism is not aggression. It is not. And it shouldn't be treated as such. And until we are in the headspace where we understand that it is more important to put checks and balances on women's power than to pamper their egos, they should stay far away from power of any sort, including the vote. Full stop. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's watch a little bit more.
All right, we're gonna watch a little bit more. Let's playing it now.
It was like women saying dumb stuff on the internet. No offense, Lily. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? The people do love those clips of like whatever podcast where a woman's like, you know, I like my OnlyFans, and then they ask about their dad, and they're like, yeah, I've never had a dad in my life, and then it's like, boom, roasted. That's why you're on.
But by
OnlyFans.
saying no offense, Lily, it's like literally intending offense.
Well, I know. I mean, Lily's actually smart. I've watched a lot of her stuff. I'm not even hating on Lily, but it's funny how like people just love to see women say something. And I'm a culture jammer, and like a lot of people made fun of you, Lily, but really and truly, what you did is the biggest culture jam ever. You took black culture and you said it as like a white, young, attractive woman, and that's why I think that it was, you know, was like so viral, right? Because you're taking a culture that you're not allowed to say, and you said it, and that's why it works so well. It's like me when I said like I love the Fauci ouchie. Give
Let me just skip past this. Let me jump ahead. I know they talk about feminism.
This man is a
more,
waste of
obviously.
time.
Yeah, Alex
Well, so
Stein's-
far, I mean, he might have things to say, but it definitely is not using his words here.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why this conversation works, because I think, to be honest, you know, most of the people who talk about this stuff, they just don't know it. They don't know it the way we know it, so they're still just as much subject to this kind of like instinct to cape for women. And I think that I think it's almost kind of unfair to berate them, because I think this is basically like most men, you know, like it's the norm. And so when they shake the norm, you congratulate them, and when they don't, you encourage them. Look, you know, you're not taking the like whatever podcast only works because it exposes the problem with women that many men know is there. Like they know it's happening. They know that there's something wrong, and it shows them, and it sort of vindicates their instincts, their gut, when they, oh yeah, that's what it is, right? These women, even Alex Stein said it. He said, oh, I never really knew my dad. And he didn't even cling to that. He just thought, oh, they just dunk on him for that. No. That's the problem, Alex. That is the problem, okay? And the women, they don't know it. They think that they would have been whatever they were no matter what. And their dad is like to blame for not being around, when what they should be looking at the mom to be like, why isn't my dad around, right? But you see that we never pin down the actual cause of this. So the single mom thing gets clowned on partly because it's the only way that we can get women to start thinking that maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe I shouldn't be like repeat the cycle that my mother repeated with me and made me into this hot mess that I am right now. Maybe I have a responsibility to myself to make better decisions about my life, and to just say, look, you're a mess because your mom was a mess, because your dad wasn't there. And it might be because he's a deadbeat. I don't know. But the truth is, at the end of the day, your mother chose to reproduce with this man who is not in your life. So either he had no intention of being in your life, which is her fault because she slept with someone and got pregnant with somebody that wasn't going to stick around, or she excluded you or him from your life, which is also her fault because she used the system to keep her, you know, the father, your father, away from you and out of your life. And this happens all the time. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but it happens enough that it should be talked about. And it's like no one wants to talk about it. You know, I saw Hannah Cox, of course, I came across it on like the main YouTube page while I was setting up the show. She just put up a video saying we have to talk about the problem with deadbeat dads. And I could already, I didn't even watch it. Like I just saw the title, right? And I was like, okay. So essentially what she's going to do is she's going to say the single motherhood problem is not a problem, but when it is a problem, it's because of men. And this is exactly the same shit that so many other people who can't get to the root of this, which is, yes, deadbeat dads exist, but women can choose who to have babies with. We have literally created 17 forms of birth control, and there's still abortion in most of the country, and women are still choosing not to make good decisions, but they're choosing to vote to destroy the country because they can't have access to the last ditch solution to their bad decisions. So like if they can't choose to destroy babies, even though they have all these other choices before that, then they'll just vote to destroy the country first before they'll actually become adults and say, maybe I should like suss this dude out. Maybe I should use protection. Maybe I shouldn't even have sex with him. Maybe I should like, I mean, it's like women can make these choices. And all that people like Hannah Cox and some others, some of them are starting to shake out of it. I remember Larry Elder used to like talk a lot about how men have to take responsibility, you know, to solve the single mother problem. But I think he's lately been realizing that women have chose to exclude men, and they do so because the state offers to support them. So they replace, you know, fathers with the state, and this is why we have this problem. So, you know, I think the Whatever podcast serves a purpose in that it shows you here is the problem, right? And the women, they don't get it half the time, but that's because they're so separated from the consequences of their actions that they probably can't see it. But the men, they're learning from this.
I just wanted to point out that a lot of the case, I think women, okay, they remove the father because they feel like it's a burden, or even maybe they've been told that the father is a burden on them. So to remove him is going to reduce the burden. Of course, they find out that's not the case. But here's the thing. If you're a woman who wants a child, why don't you wait until the man has married you and expressed an interest in having a child with you before you have that child? Like, that is within your ability to do, is it not? And again, like I'm not gonna. I have said multiple times I am pro-choice. Okay, so I am absolutely 100% for, you know, waiting until you find the man who is willing to marry you. I mean, I don't understand with abortion how there are any unwanted children and how there are any children who are the products of single mothers who have never gotten married. Right? Like, how does that happen? And if you are in a relationship and you have a child, that relationship is now the child's, not yours. Like, you have taken on that responsibility. People say, well, I'm miserable. Who cares? People think that it's worse to be in a relationship. Grow up. Learn to resolve your issues, because that's usually what the problem is. You know, the emotions have flushed, like it's no longer the honeymoon period. You have to do the slog that you're living with another human being who can speak back to you, and you have to live with that. Well, learn conflict resolution, learn the skills to have a relationship, even if it's just it's going to end up just being a platonic roommate situation, but you stay together for the kid, because that is like the divorce is going to devastate your child. No if and or about it. And your life is now your child's. The end. Period. If you don't like that, don't have children. There's every opportunity to do that as well. If you're a woman and you do not like the fact that when you become a mother, your life becomes your child's. It's the same with a man. Then don't become a mother. Find something else to fill your life with. Right? So, I mean, people just have they take on these responsibilities for children, and then they don't want to make any accommodation for the child that they've created. They want a situation. I mean, evolutionarily, once you've reproduced, your life is basically over. It's it. It's done. Put a fork in it. Then the person who matters now is your child. That's it. You can have a life in order to maintain your child emotionally, sure. You know, you got to keep yourself healthy. You got to try to keep your relationship healthy. But you have committed to this, and it is a huge commitment. And women need to know that. They need to know how much of a commitment it is. And don't do it lightly. And don't do it without a man in the picture. Make sure you have that ring and you have his consent to the child. And then if he fucks off, you have a legitimate case. You do have a case. Like, he's definitely a deadbeat if he fucks off after that. After he has agreed to marry you and he has agreed to have a child. Then if he screws off, he is definitely a deadbeat. But until that moment, unless you got those two things, he ain't a deadbeat. He was just somebody who wandered into your life and you randomly decided for him that you were going to make him a father. And how would you like that? How would you like someone randomly wander into your life and decide for you to make you a mother? You would not like that. That's what this whole hysteria around abortion is. So don't do it to men. Okay? Like, and what the hell? Like, what is the point? Like, here's the thing. This is one thing I wanted to say. And I hope these women actually bring stuff like this up. You don't have to take on the responsibility of being a mother. But once you do, you have to live up to that. That means you put the kid first, period. Right? But you don't have to take on that responsibility. That is your choice to do so. Okay? And I mean, just when I think about this, when I think about this inability to criticize women, now, the real victims of it are women and their children. Because when a woman is the primary architect of her own existence and she has no feedback on whether what she's going to do is going to hit her like a ton of bricks later down the road, then you have essentially given women a gun and told them that it shoots flowers. Right? Here, this is this guy who thinks he's such a great dude. He's so awesome to the ladies. He's basically handing women loaded guns and saying, oh yeah, they just shoot flowers. Go ahead, put it to your skull and pull the trigger. Great guy here. Great. The dude that started speaking, great guy. That's why criticism of women is not anti-woman. Because when you put women in a position where they are the primary architects of their reality, they need to be criticized or they're going to construct a hell for themselves. Full stop. And if you're a man who thinks that you're good because you're like, oh, criticism is anti-woman, you're not. You're an enabler of the destruction of women. Okay. I'm a little bit heated. I hope I haven't gotten too squeaky. I'm trying not to get squeaky.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm going to play the video, so don't say anything.
Okay.
So that the automatic scene switcher works, okay?
An infringement of free speech, ultimately.
I think it's all deeply, deeply paradoxical. You know, when it comes to the whole like N-word argument stuff, it's like, yeah, I come from a generation, we don't say that because we're just trying to keep decorum, I guess. There are some people to go to a skate park anywhere mean what the older generation think it means to these kids. And I'm not saying that's a good thing and listen to these kids talk to each other because it just means dude.
By making
It's
it
great.
a word,
It's weird.
by making it a word you can't say, the younger generation, of course, like memed it and turned it into a cool thing to say.
I don't think that's what it is to them. That's literally what he's saying. It's like it doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah, it's almost like we've taken the racial aspect. Like, it's not even a racist word anymore, at least.
There is a, what is it referred to? A cottage industry of hating women.
Yes.
And I was talking to my girlfriend about this. There exist channels that have no ethos, no ideology, and there's a bunch of them. We'll leave them unnamed because people can guess who they are. And it's like you ask these hosts, these guys, some of these women, what are your politics? And they'll just defer, like, well, I'm not, I don't know. I'm just saying, because their whole thing is, I got a bunch of angry guys who watch me, and it feels good when we blame women for why they feel bad.
Yes, but what if
Do you
women
think
are
that's
to blame?
react?
Go ahead.
What if women are to blame? That's what I said. Sorry, guys, if there was a pause.
No,
Like,
it's okay.
Here is the thing. Like, okay, you have women who are the majority voters, so they steer the ship now. Doesn't matter all the crap about but men are politicians. Men are there because they're voted into power. So women are once again the selectors of male rulership, and they're deciding whether or not the man rules or not. Okay, this is the power, and this is not actually an unusual power. Women have had this power throughout most of human history. They select the ruler. They may not be the ruler, but they generally select the ruler. It's why kingship is often mythologically represented by a sort of like a almost like a nature, feminine nature spirit, like the Lady of the Lake, raising her arm and throwing King Arthur the sword. So it's like the whole concept of the anointment of kingship is from the feminine, and that's very much throughout history. So men do, women select. But we are in a situation where women are making these selections. If we can't criticize them, they shouldn't be making the selections. If we can't blame them for the end result of their collective choices, they shouldn't have the ability to make those choices. Like, I mean, you and here's the thing, you want to live in a world where men are essentially the prime movers of everything, and women have no there. Like they don't have there's nothing that they do that affects the greater world. Like being the majority voters. Oh, well, that doesn't mean anything, right? Because the majority of politicians are men. So why did they even want to get the vote in the first place? Because it does mean something. It does mean that you're charting the course of society. But if women are doing that, then they take the blame for where we're going. And also like substantial things that they make choices about in their own lives. Like we have, the thing is that it seems to me that, and I've said this before, that there is a dividing line. There are those people who can understand and accept the idea that women have responsibility, that women's actions have consequences, and that at some point men can no longer be seen as the primary agent of things. I'll go right out there. I don't think men are the primary agents of things. They're not the primary choosers. They're not the primary actors in our society, right? There are people who can understand that women are responsible. Their actions matter. And then there are people who just can't. And I think it comes down to identity. Men identify with this idea that their actions have matter. And when you say, actually, no, you're not in a situation where you really can do anything, it's an existential crisis for them, and they automatically reject it. And it has nothing really to do with women's benefit or women or anything. It has everything to do with how they view themselves as a man. They cannot handle the idea that they are not the primary movers. They reject it on a fundamental level. And unfortunately, those dragons that we refuse to recognize usually are the ones that come and eat us. All right.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's play some more of the video.
Reactionary to several decades of overwhelming feminist propaganda saying that men are toxic, masculinity is bad, that you can't act in a manly sort of way. And now public school systems also treating little boys like pariahs and giving them ADHD meds. So they have to sit still and be quiet like the girls and just highlight things and organize stuff, right? Like we've criminalized masculinity to a degree and put feminism front and center and made it the air we breathe. So I think there's just a lot of reaction. I think it's a reactionary movement like a lot of the other ones that we're dealing with right now.
I completely agree. I'll tell you what it was like for me when I was younger.
I don't think Tim Pool would come after us, but I'm pausing for the banana just to play it safe. Don't come after us, Tim. I don't think you consider me a friend, but we've met. So I'm pretty reasonable. All right. Anyway, let's play some more.
Well, we're probably part of the channels that have no ethos, that hate women or something.
No, I don't. No, I don't think that's true. I think he's specifically, he doesn't want to name names, but he's talking about these podcasts where they bring on a bunch of women. Pearl used to do that. Fresh and Fit. Andrew Tate, not him, but Fresh and Fit and the whatever podcast. And I'm sure that there's other ones that are sort of doing similar things. And it's basically like, okay, let's bring on girls in our, young ladies that are we meet them at the club or somewhere out, and we invite them on. And of course they all want to be influencers, and they all want to have promote their OnlyFans or whatever. So they go on there partly to promote, and they are okay with I guess, being, I don't want to call it humiliated, because I think that Like if a typical whatever podcast is like 3 hours or 4 hours, you
Mhm.
might get you might get like 3 or 4, sound bites out of it that become viral clips. Maybe it's usually because there's a woman on there that's delusional about her value, or she has insane ideas about the relationship between men and women, and that's the stuff that gets put out there because the purpose of it is, again, to show like this is what's happening to our women. It's not unsympathetic, but the problem is that you get people, I don't know, like supposed conservative women. I don't even like to use the term because I don't think it applies, but basically second wave feminist women that are like, oh, this is not fair, they're making us look bad, and they'll say, it's these podcasts that make women look bad. And it's like, no, it's the women that are making the women look bad. It's the women doing it. Like, they're not trapping them. They're not putting them in a puzzle and then watching them struggle. They're just asking them, what do you think? And they'll be like, men are trash. They'll be like, okay. And then these people come out and say, oh, this is so wrong. It's like, no, this is what these women think. This is what you have to contend with. It's not the men that have these shows or Pearl, they're just putting it on display. They're not making them this way. They are this way. They're just showing it to you. So it's like you're trying to shoot the messenger. I don't think he's referring to us. I think that we're beneath the notice of people. Although I would be open to doing something like that, like a show like that, but have it be more like, I don't know, like have those kinds of women on, but basically try to like help them understand that they've been lied to. Because I think that's the thing, it's that saying, it's easier to fool someone than to convince someone that they have been fooled. And that's what most of what we're contending with now is. It's people who cannot be deprogrammed or struggling deprogramming because they have their pride and identity invested in their belief system about the world. And this is especially a problem with women. And I don't know that's how I would put it. So anyway, let's play some more of Tim's video.
I consider myself smart enough not to single out individuals. Maybe it's because where I grew up in the city or whatever. I'm not going to blame some individual for the actions of society or the group. We want to change society, but it's fascinating growing up, being completely broke, or being homeless. I'm homeless when I'm 18. Nobody will hire me. And then, so when I'm 16 and I go to all of the businesses in my neighborhood, what job can a 16-year-old guy get, right? I don't know, clerk at a candy shop, ice cream shop, grocery store. Guess what? They don't hire guys. They just don't. It's overwhelmingly, at least when I was growing up, you go to a grocery store and say, hi, I'm looking for a job. Guess what? You find all the cashiers are girls. There are some boys, I'm not saying they don't hire at all, but it was like 75-25. All of the stock,
I'm just, okay, pausing again. He's just explaining that girls tended to be favored even when he was growing up. So Tim Pool's a millennial. I mean, when I was a kid, I couldn't find a job easily either. And I remember my first job, I was a busboy at a restaurant. All the waitresses, the bartenders, the managers, all women. The men were either busboys or they worked in the kitchen. They were the cooks, the dishwashers, etc. And most of those guys didn't really speak much English. They were all Mexicans and Guatemalans. I was like the only Puerto Rican there. But yeah, I mean, I that was my first job. And it's true. I mean, it was just, I saw women my age, not as smart as me, getting better jobs. And I didn't really think about it like, oh, it's sexism against men or anything like that. But I was like, this seems a little bit unfair. But I think it's just people want women. I mean, they did in the fucking 90s and the 80s. So this isn't like a new or recent thing.
Shelving and the facing, 75-25 girls. I went to Baskin Robbins and I'm like, I need a job. Everyone there is a girl. When I turned 18, what job can I get? Manual labor? Yes. It pays nothing. My friend's sister comes home one day. We're playing video games. It's like 11 o'clock. And she's got 200 and some odd dollars in cash. And my friend's like, he was like, oh, how much did you make today? And she's like, oh, like 230. And then he was like, oh, wow. And then I was like, you made $230 in one day? She's a server at a pizza restaurant. And I was just like, I just worked 11 hours. I lifted 50,000 pounds and I got paid $40. So it gets really frustrating then when all of that stuff is around you for these entry level jobs. And then you are told it's your fault, you're the problem, and you have all the privilege in society. That being said, you know, when you start getting older,
Can I
guys
just
start
make
getting older.
Oh, I know where he's going. We probably should pause a bit just to
Yeah,
not
sure.
get out of
Fair
the
enough.
copyright. But I think I know where he's going with this. I want to point out something, but let's just listen a little bit more. I want to see if he actually talks about what I'm talking about or about to
Okay.
talk about.
All right, I'll play a little bit more.
It starts to flip.
Yeah.
It inverts. And for whatever reason. And then women start complaining about it.
Okay,
So,
all right.
my
Yes.
piece-
So he did say what I thought he was going to say. It inverts for whatever reason. Well, try this on for size. Well, first of all, let's not discount the role of biology. Men have always been very innovative because they're risk takers. They take risks. They also are more interested in systems, so they can identify things that interventions that could be profitable, like all of the industrial machines, spinning jenny, the mechanical looms, all of this stuff. Like the first kind of industrial machines were invented by men who identified sort of like a pinch point in some kind of productive system. Like maybe spinning was a limiting on how much cloth could be made, so they constructed a machine that could assist with spinning thread, that kind of thing. Men think in terms of systems. It's one of the big things that they do, right? They think in terms of mechanical parts moving, and not just mechanical parts moving, but parts moving in a more abstract sense, like a production line or a supply line and stuff like that. It's the way they think. So that advantage of being able to think in terms of systems and be able to be innovative and risk taking, coupled with the fact that they get nothing just by being men. Like, don't you think that a man who sees this situation, that he's not going to be able to be a server and make $230 a day in tips, right? Because that's women can do that, men can't, right? He is going to go and try to find another way to offer value. So he's going to go to a trade, maybe become a plumber. Maybe he's going to go to business school or try to get into business school. Maybe he's going to go into a STEM field where he ultimately will end up as an engineer dealing with utilities, whatever. He's going to figure out how to do a long-term investment that will, in the long term, deliver something, because he has to, because he's not going to make $230 as an 18-year-old right out of high school like a girl can. So this thing that we do where we value women just for being women most likely reduces any kind of incentive to be innovative, to be productive, to look long term. Okay. Even though, as anybody in these podcasts will say, and this is why I say that men who don't criticize women are not women's friends. They're men who don't point this out are not women's friends. Yes, a woman can be a server, make $230 in tips a day, up to a point. And that point generally comes when she starts to lose her looks. And then people will value her for is her capabilities, is her skills, is the things that she's accomplished that have nothing to do with her being a woman. So men who don't criticize women, first of all, the reason why they're so upset at the whatever podcast is probably because they bring on very young, very attractive women, and they just don't like seeing them criticized. But the whatever
right.
podcast is going to say to those young and attractive women, hey, there's something in your future that you have to deal with. So you need to start thinking in terms of long term. At least I would do that if I were on those podcasts. You need to start thinking about the time in which you are not going to make $1,000 in tips in a strip club, or as a waitress. That's not going to happen for you anymore. Your OnlyFans income will dry up, right? You got to think about the day. Or alternatively, maybe you'll end up going through menopause and you said, oh my God, I wanted a kid. You have to think about your future and you have to plan for it like a man would. And we understand that because guess what? We've had to do that from day one. We're men. Our value comes from how well we've planned to earn value in the future. And they inform them of this. And you call that, the guys call that, oh, that's hatred of women. Is it? Or is it hatred of women to refuse to recognize the reality that they're going to face, like refuse to tell these girls, these cute little girls, hey, oh, by the way, when your petals start wilting, your life is going to suck. Is it hatred to do that to them, or is it hatred to be like, oh my gosh, she's so freaking hot, who gives a crap about what happens to her when she's 40? I don't want to ruin the chance of getting into that. Which is hatred. Which is hatred. Because right now, from where I'm sitting, the Whatever podcast doesn't hate women. And the men who refuse to criticize women, to explain to them the reality that they live in because they want to fuck them or because they want social approval from them, are the ones who are exploitative and manipulative. Because there's no you're not refusing to criticize these girls. Are you really refusing to criticize these girls because you really care? Or are you refusing to criticize these girls because you don't want to take the social hit of being seen to criticize them, or because you hold out some kind of hope that if you flatter and lie to them, you'll get a bit of that, you'll get a bit of whatever's in their pants? Like, honestly, really ask yourself that. Is it really about caring about women that's making you not criticize them? Okay.
All right, let's play on some Mo.
Basis on this is society, because of like evolution and biology, all that, values women at young ages, obviously, because having babies. Men have no value because they have no skills to provide, to protect, or protect a family or generate value and resources. So if you look at the scientific research, you see that a social value of men starts at the bottom and for women starts at the top. But what happens at 28 years old? They meet. Right. This is where women are going, hey, this is BS. My life is getting worse. And men are going, hey, things aren't so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Once I hit 30,
that's not really that true.
Better.
I maybe for Tim Pool, but there's a lot of guys who, regardless of the success that they get, it's not enough to.
I think that Tim is looking at it from a very abstract, like here are the numbers perspective. But there is another factor to this that I want to add in that I don't think they're going to bring up. Not only is it an issue where you have young women and they have jobs, they're making good money, they can use their looks and their fertility to maybe garner themselves more opportunities, and guys are struggling in general, especially when they're young. I think that's all that is true. I think that we have created a system where women's personhood as women is automatic and men's personhood as men must be earned. And this is lopsided, and I don't want to say unfair, but it's going to result in more harm in the long run. I think one of the things they don't mention that I think is worth bringing up is that if you are a woman and you're accustomed to bringing home, in his example, $200 a night for tips as a waitress, then the man who works like a labor job for $40 a day is not appealing to you. And so women are going to have like an extremely distorted view of what is of their own worth, essentially, from how much they get from when they're young. Also comparing it to how much harder men generally have to work, especially the average man, if they even get work at all. And so when these women get older and they're like, oh, I think I'm, even the ones that are not, girl bossing it up and like putting off, marriage until like whatever, 35, even those women, not even including those, just like the average woman, let's say she's like 22 and she's looking for a man. She's accustomed to so much more that she's not going to find a guy that's going to be able to meet her That's why you get women in their cars right now saying, "Why can't I find a man that's meeting my energy?" It's because you have more by virtue of being a woman, and that than men could get, even if they're working really hard, even if they're trying to learn skills. And this is why the argument that you'll get from some self-help types that'll be like, well, you just need to like get some skills, bro. You need to go lift, you need to go, do this, learn how to talk to women, learn how to nag, etc. None of that matters, because women are looking at the bottom line. They're accustomed to so much more. They won't settle for less. Why would they? And it's like, that's the thing. The real thing is, I can't blame them if they're accustomed to seeing, to having Louis Vuitton bags and the new iPhone, which they can do. If they're used to it, I can't see how they could even envision a world without a smartphone that's like the newest one or whatever. And so this is like creating another issue, because not only do you have women that are accustomed to a different level of comfort than men of their own age, but as the women get older, their delusion continues. So even though, and then when they start really realizing that their value is starting to like plateau, I wouldn't say it goes down, but it plateaus, that is something that they end up blaming men for. So they don't even say, well, I messed up, I should have, I should have settled or whatever, I should have like found a way to make it work, I should have realized what all of my advantages were. I mean, it's a mess, and I don't think these people can see that.
No, no. Well, I mean, because it requires actually recognizing women as agents, primary agents, and responsible. Like, and I again, I don't know what like switch was flipped in my brain, but you can declare women responsible all day long, and it doesn't bother me at all. But the instant somebody starts being like, "Oh, the most important thing about you is you're a woman, and I respect that," I'm like, "Oh God, get away from me." Like, I don't know. It's just, and I recognize that I'm coming from a perspective. The reason why I'm saying this is I recognize I'm coming from maybe a strange perspective, but I rather a whatever podcast than a podcast in which men are just basically saying, "Yeah, nothing's your fault." It's nothing is your fault. It's men's fault, you know. I Because it just feels so phony
Yeah.
and so untruthful, and also I want to know that my actions matter. I don't understand, like, at the end of the day, I really struggle with the mindset that women apparently have, that that they do not want to have their actions matter, because that's what responsibility means. It means your actions matter. And how can you say that women hold up half the sky and not realize that if half the sky is fallen, women are to blame? Like, if you want credit for something, you need to take responsibility for when that thing goes south. If you want the vote, you need to take credit for when society is steered in a direction that's not the suboptimal, shall we say, you know? And I don't understand the mentality, the constant evasion of accountability. I mean, I do, like, it's uncomfortable. Criticism is uncomfortable, you know? I don't like getting criticized. I've had to go through process of having my writing criticized, and it felt very endless and frustrating. Sure, I get it. But that's when you dig deep and you realize, well, I can still take action to deal with this feedback. I can I can dig deeper and find a little bit more effort to put forth, you know? And honestly, like, of all the things, like, a lot of crap has happened to me because I've advocated for men's issues, because I've recognized the importance of holding women responsible, like the getting kicked out of the Calgary Expo, losing a lawsuit, getting kicked out of an entire country, which may or may not actually be in relation to what we do here. That stuff is not fun. It's extremely stressful, but at the end of the day, I'd rather live a life believing my actions matter than live a non-life. never knowing that I've had any impact whatsoever on anyone, which honestly, a world where in which women are not held responsible, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It sounds like a world where women are optional. Okay.
All right, let's play some more.
Sure.
Playing some more of the video now.
But I also think and I guess this is different than the point you're trying to make, but to what Rachel was saying, when it comes to men and women, the digitization or the digitalization, I don't know what the word for it, the dating pool, I think that's what's making it so hard to make connections, because we said this last night on your show, with these
Last
dating.
week.
Oh yes, we said it. Excuse me, we said it last week on your show. The dating apps are so toxic and superficial, where people are just swiping, and the girls get hit up way more than the guys. So it kind of makes men mad at women. I don't know how else to describe it, because they're sending all these messages and women are playing them. These women are getting like so many more messages. So I think like dating in this dating world that we have, this modern dating world, is why men are starting to hate women so much. And I think that's why men like that content where women get lampooned.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what you were just saying, but
The men don't hate women. I think that it's like the dating pool has probably, for as long as there's been dating, which isn't that long, and when you look at like the history of humanity, women have always been far pickier, and yeah, men get rejected a lot, and I mean, though, that's just the truth. I can't, you know what? I'm sorry, but I can't stand when people blame the apps, the internet, all this bullshit, social media is to blame. It's fucking people. It's people. We just need to figure out, like, what are the people doing wrong? What's wrong with their perception of reality? What's wrong with like their actions? By what metric are they judging? And the truth is that the only thing the internet has done is it's opened up like a massive the dam, a dam has broken on how much access to people you have, which just makes women's hypergamous nature like ramp up to 11, because now they're not just picking from like the people in their graduating class. They're picking from dudes all over the world, and so they're gonna go for the top 1% of those dudes. I mean, that's just it is. Like, that's what it is. We're just in this room now. Let's just deal with it. Let's stop blaming the inanimate objects for human problems. These are human problems. Right?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this tweet that I just came across our desk in the Discord. Somebody is proposing that men live in a prison and just be allowed out to do the work of society. A feminist on Twitter, and she's alleging that this is better than what the red pill bros do, which is, I guess, advocate for men and women to form relationships. Okay. Anyway, it just was a little bit shocking, but let's keep going.
Is it though?
No, actually, you're right. No, it isn't. It's depressing.
Yeah.
Not shocking.
All right, I'm playing the video now.
also, so all of these things combine, and then you'll get a guy who has got a frustration for one reason or another, and then a YouTube channel pops up where they're like, "Did you know women be dumb?" And the guy's like, "Yeah," you know what I mean? And it's like, people got to get onto the real world. You gotta go. That you're talking about these dating apps, and this is why they made Bumble. Women on Tinder, they open their mailbox or inbox or whatever it's called, and 17,000 messages, and they just scroll through and look for a guy who's got an attractive picture, and then hit it and see what he says, and then respond. Men swipe on every single woman. They don't care what she looks like, and cross their fingers that one of them swipes back.
Yeah. I think it's we do have a gynocentric social order right now.
Wow.
Which we did not have for all of prior history. And it's to have things so radically inverted in less than a century. It's not surprising to me that psychologically people don't know how to deal with that and can't keep up with it. And it's just everything about daily life is so radically different due to this massive wave of feminist propaganda that started late 60s. The CIA funded and pushed a lot of it through the Congress for Cultural Freedom, through Operation Mockingbird.
Where they pushed feminism through Mockingbird?
Yes.
Pausing there just to play it safe. But Rachel Wilson's about to give them a history lesson. Okay, I'm playing more of it now.
They absolutely did. So Gloria Steinem was recruited out of Smith College to push the feminist agenda, and they used CIA money to fund Ms. Magazine and a number of other pop culture phenomenons that came out of the 70s, like the Stepford Wives movie and like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, a lot of this kind of stuff. It was to kind of convince suburban average American women that being at home, being a mom, having babies was like oppressive and holding you back. And don't you want to go out and have a career and have an exciting life? Like,
What's the reason for that?
so there's a bunch of reasons for that. One is the Rockefellers had just created gender studies departments.
Okay, why?
I think we need
So
to
at,
pause
in
for
an,
a sec.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, she's definitely up on the history of where feminism came from. I think that I don't know, I feel like the audience is not going to really understand where she's coming from though.
Well, it's okay. I think she's planting a
Oh,
seed. I
just
mean,
just a sec. Brian, you're really loud.
I
Maybe
am. Am I
yeah.
loud for you?
Yeah, Brian is loud for me. Chat, is Brian loud for you guys?
Because I'm looking at
I
the
just
levels here, and
understood I just understood the
somebody
Zoomer
said
chat
that I
thing now.
was. Yeah, somebody said I was low.
Really?
You know, a
Okay.
little bit. I mean, I
Let me
don't
just
know.
what the heck?
You
Okay,
oh,
so
somebody quiet on my side, low, Brian quiet. What? Why am I
really?
quiet? All right, hold
Oh,
on.
all right,
Hold
all
on.
right. Am I quiet relative to Brian? That's a good question, right? I'm just like, for some reason, if I increase you, like I have this very narrow range of volume in which,
Really?
yeah, for some reason,
So you want me to I'll turn myself down in here.
yeah,
How's that?
yeah,
Is
that's
that
good.
better?
And then turn yourself up for the listeners in
Yeah,
the audience.
I'll try to do that. Let me see. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, I know. I could do it here, maybe.
Okay, Mr. Playlist
No.
Man says no. So I guess we're pretty much okay. Thank you, everyone. Technical difficulties successfully resolved. All right,
Okay.
do you want to? Yeah, like
Yeah,
let's find out how Tim responds to that because
let's play some
I'm
more.
here
But
for
yeah,
it, but I'm not sure he is.
yeah, me too. I think it's good to know. But okay, playing more of the video now.
effort to liberalize the West, separate it and set it apart from the Soviet Union was a big reason why the CIA was behind it. It was part of a larger culture creation effort from the CIA
To make us
during the
more
Cold War.
communist?
No, to make us more liberalized. So they
But, like
don't.
they're going in the direction of communism.
Wow, this is really
Well,
interesting.
that's what ended up happening because Nelson
I don't
Rockefeller
know. She's
chose.
probably too big to come on our channel now, but it would be great to have a conversation with her.
I tried. I've been working to get her on, and I don't know. I mean, I still would like to get her on. I'll give her another poke, but it's. I moved my mic a little bit closer. Maybe that's what it is for you guys.
All right. Well, maybe
Um,
I should give it a try through the Honey Badger Radio channel. Like maybe she.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I have tried to reach out to her before, but, yeah, this is the thing too. Like, I know it's gonna sound like an oxymoron, but what Rachel Wilson's saying is true, and I think Carl has talked about this too. Liberalism can lead to communism, so it is like, and it doesn't sound like it because communism is pretty like illiberal, but that's kind of where it goes. So that was like the women's movement, the feminist movement, started as a movement to liberalize or liberate women, right? But what do the feminists want now? Well, essentially they want communism. They want a system where men pay into and women pull from, which is essentially a redistribution model in the same way the Soviets did it. It's just that instead of from the bourgeoisie to the proletariat, it's from men to women. And it's the same. It is like Karen has said, socialism with panties. That's what it is. So yeah, I think that if you're not careful, liberalism can certainly lead to communism, or even national socialism. It's the same. But anyway, are you responding to that tweet, or are you sending Rachel Wilson a message?
I am actually sending Rachel Wilson a message to see if she might be interested. Because the thing is that I have my own thoughts on the social manipulation and the reason for feminism.
Mm-hmm. Well, feminism work, and the thing is, if you've read Rachel's book, but I think that it's not that I read it and then realized something. I read it and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because I think that it is essentially, there are people in the chat that are kind of saying this in different ways. Essentially, feminism is not something that someone made up and then other women saw it and they decided to agree with it. Feminism is just taking something about women and making it into a political vehicle. And so women are just going to jump on board. And of course, not only that, but men will too, because men want to support women because they love women. And so in general, if you tell men feminism will help them, men will be like, well, then I'm down for that, because I will also want to support women.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess they didn't really talk to the topic about the right being particularly against women, or
Well, yeah, I mean, go ahead.
well, here's the issue that I have with calling out the right. First of all, where is the political position in which women have to take responsibility for being the majority of the voters, right? Like,
well, the thing is, there are men on the right that are doing that. That's where it's all coming from. The pushback is coming from. But of course, these guys that are kind of milquetoast, they're like, well, that's going too far. And this is like, I don't know. It's just,
is it really from the right, or is it the right is the only
pushback?
place where they have even a possibility of having a platform?
I think that there are. Okay. Is it the right that's really doing this? When we say doing this, do we mean pushing back and criticizing women?
Yes.
Is that what we mean by that?
Because certainly not the mainstream Republicans or at any.
No, not at all. I think that when we say the right, because I know people are going to have their opinions on this, I think that it's one of these things where most of the guys who are doing this, they probably, and Temple even said it in the video, that they wouldn't have anything to say about their politics. Like if you said, what are your politics? They're going to be like, I don't know. I think that it's not a thing that happens to be a political tentpole position. I think that a lot of men who are aware of what's happening, you yourself said that men are generally good at analyzing systems, and I think they're also good at recognizing patterns. And so when they see patterns emerging and they see that, like, oh look, this problem, it came from women, oh this problem came from women, this other problem came from women, right? And one of them is like the trans thing. Like I don't remember where I saw it, but like there was a conversation about, I remember, it was a really great interview with a guy named anyway, alt history or something like that. And he was saying that, he was talking about how the problem of men who identify as women and then enter women's sports, or they're in women's changing rooms, or they're in women's gyms or whatever, is a problem that women created. And then they're like, well, and now they're acting like they didn't do it, and they're basically blaming men for it. And so like I think that men are recognizing this, they're seeing it, and they're just like, well, we got to call out women. And I don't think that is necessarily a conservative position, but it's not a leftist one, because the left is the one pushing for it. So by contrast, I think that they get thrown in with the right.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, but that's only because, I mean, I guess it is in a way, because it's all that's left, like that, because it's really like it essentially, if you remove the guys that are calling out women for their bad behavior, which is what we're talking about, which is, I think, an absolutely necessary force.
Yes.
And the only thing you have left are the men who essentially further push women to do more bad things, like leftist men, the feminist men that think women can do no wrong, or you have these sort of milquetoasty men that are like, well, women are kind of creating problems, but we shouldn't like go after them for it, because it might make them feel uncomfortable and they might vote to destroy the country, and we shouldn't do that because we don't want them to destroy the country. And then there's guys that are like, well, why do they have that power? To begin with. And that's the question that should be asked. It's like, do we want to live in fear of women's, like, I don't know, feelings getting hurt? Like, is that
that's not a way to
want? Yeah,
that is not a way to run like, you cannot run a system by constantly. The people who are focused on their needs and their comfort are not capable of living up to the kind of necessary action that a system requires to maintain. Like for the maintenance of a system, you have to be a person who sees themselves in terms of their function in the system, not in terms of their needs. Otherwise, who's maintaining it? Like if everybody is just identifying needs and making request or making demands, there's nobody to fulfill those needs, and there's nobody to fix the system that's capable of fulfilling those needs. You know, but the thing that I wanted to point out is it seems like the left is sort of identifying women's needs that society has to accommodate, and it just keeps identifying them faster and faster and faster, and also identifying the needs of the monolithic infant classes that women have identified. So women go out and they identify groups of people based on what they need, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
the
sure.
trans people need
Well,
this.
it doesn't even matter if they really need it. They just need to
Yeah.
be convinced that there is a need.
Yes,
whenever,
exactly.
yeah, like whenever the left scores a victory, they just move the Overton window and then they create a new thing that they have to pursue.
And a
so
new
like
set of
it
needs
and
that
yeah, and they'll come back around. Like they'll come back around to I
to the
think
last
that
one, yeah.
yeah, well the last one, I don't know if I think the last one is going to be the advocacy for maps, and that's when our society is done.
Yeah.
And that's like no, like it's happened. It's happened in history, like with the with other uh, civilizations. Like once you get to the point where people are saying, "What about kids?" That's the end of your society. And that's we're coming to that. Like it's beginning. It was on the fringes. Hannah was talking about it. It's coming towards the center, and once it does, we're done. And it has to be because there is a class or a population of people, most of them women, that are going to be like, well, we can't hurt their feelings by denying them this. And that's the thing about liberation. When it's like a framing of liberation as, oh, I should be free to do whatever I want, do as thou wilt, as
Well, even more than that, that
McVeigh used to say.
people are defined by their needs, like and how they've been impacted by society in not getting those needs fulfilled. So we should be giving people their needs, and we should view people based on needs instead of function. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like communism, except and from everybody based on their abilities to everybody according to their need, except you get rid of ability. So it's just to everybody according to their need, with
Yeah.
no consideration of where the hell it comes from. Right? So what I was trying to get at is there's a conservative quality, like, that sees women expressing needs and says men's role is to fulfill them, right? Which is why they're always looking for the man who has failed her when they see women screwing up their own lives. Okay? And when you're in that mindset, it is impossible to criticize women's behavior, because any potential downside to women's behavior is a failure of men in that mindset.
Yeah.
And it is a conservative mindset that men exist to provide for women's needs, period. And I know that the men who are like, wait, we need to criticize women's effect on men and children in society, that is not a conservative position. To a degree, it might be if you look at it in terms of like Christian morality and expectations
Like
that are put
men
on women.
stepping in and like taking charge, kind of a thing. Like
Yeah, or
leading.
but just not even men stepping in and taking charge, but any kind of external moral standard applied to women. So like maybe very traditional Christianity would have a standard applied to women in which they have to uphold, the 10 commandments, but also other things like um, submitting to their husband, which in my opinion means just learning to understand a man's approach to how he does things and realizing that there is value and wisdom in it. And then also other aspects of things that women need to live up to, so that traditional Christianity might have it. But what I see with like this political conservatism is that there is an absolute failure to expect women to be responsible. All they can do is criticize the groups of people that women have identified based on their needs. Really, they cannot criticize women, and they cannot look and say, all right, these needs are illegitimate, ladies. Man up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, let's finish
All
this
right,
off, I
I'm gonna
think.
play the. Yeah, let's finish this off. I think we're almost at the end here.
Sandra Harding to push feminist epistemology. Standpoint theory is what it's called. It's the kind of the root of all the critical theory stuff that permeates the universities now. But the reason they liked it was because you can use standpoint theory, which says there is no objective truth, there's no objective timeline of history. We can kind of create it to be whatever we want. So that's how you get this transgender stuff. You get a lot of these, everything is a social construct, very Marxist. But the Rockefellers liked it because you can use it in whatever direction you want. So they don't really care about capitalism versus communism or West versus East. They care more about propaganda, mind control, and pushing public opinion in whatever direction they need to. That's why you'll see, like you talk all the time about how the left and right are so different now than they were even 20 years ago. Like the pro-war version, of the liberal left is now what the right is saying. 20
Or the
years.
anti-war.
Yeah.
Former-
I'm just pausing for the banana, just playing it safe here. But okay, there's only a little bit left, so I guess we'll just finish it off.
Anti-war, but people moved over.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so that was the end. So I guess there was maybe I skipped something. I thought there was a bit where she had a back and forth with this guy, maybe.
Maybe it was in a different.
That it was, was like
Different video.
so viral,
Yeah, maybe
right?
a different video, because I don't think she did have a back and forth. She just sort of shut him down and they moved on. And it's like, yeah, you gotta. The thing is that this is the only way to change this is you have to be just socially tough. Like you just have
Yeah.
to be like, no, we got to hold women to task. We
Yeah.
have to hold them responsible. We can't continue to give them outs with nonsense like feminism, right? And because our society is failing, it's starting to become non-functional. And honestly, these political arguments are themselves luxury beliefs, because what matters is keeping a society productive and what is necessary to put in place to keep a society productive and moving forward. And once that breaks down, you got nothing. I mean, you can have arguments over abortion and all of this other stuff, but ultimately you need to have a super productive society to even be in a position to make these arguments. And that comes down to the relationship between men and women incentivizing each other's productivity. And that's broken. And and we have blamed men for how many generations now? We've blamed men so much. We're destroying we're essentially destroying their capability of doing the work necessary to keep society running. And we need to just the only thing that's going to happen, the only demarcation is, are you capable of holding women accountable? Are you capable of holding women responsible? Do you realize that women's feelings are not that important in the grand scheme of things? Like, they're just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, and if you can't realize that, then you're not going to be part of fixing it, or at least part of some kind of future fix. Like women are not going to die from having their feelings hurt. Okay.
They're
But
not?
but you can destroy a society through unchecked immigration and specifically importing someone else's war. That can most definitely destroy a society. And ultimately, like, if we're talking about the right, if the right allows themselves, and they already have, like, I mean, let's imagine a theoretical political party that doesn't do this. If the right allows itself to be dictated to by women's emotions, then there's no point to their existence. They might as well throw it in and do what the left does, but faster, harder, and more intensely than the left. Like that right now, the one thing that separates the central, like the left is really basically just the central party and everybody else. And I called it the Church of Women Worsting. The one thing that separates is whether or not you hold women accountable and responsible and do not regard women's emotions as being more important than the business of keeping a society going. And I don't want to get to the point where people realize, oh, hey, I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I don't give a crap about what Cat Turd said about women voting. Let's not get to that point where we all have a real wake up call of actually how important women's emotions are at the end of the day. And again, if the Republican Party lets itself be controlled by women's sensibilities, then you got nothing. You don't have to be controlled by women's sensibilities. Like, one of the freeingest things I ever experienced in realizing I don't have to be controlled by my own sensibilities. It's like I can walk around, I can run around with no sensibilities as a woman and be free from them. Like, I don't have to constantly be on guard over my own ego and the expectation of respect. I can choose what I care about. And when women learn stuff like that, they're better off. They're better off with a party that says, hey, you're a fellow traveler, you're a fellow citizen, you are a fellow element that has to do your job in order to keep everything going. Stow the bullshit and let's focus on what needs to get done. Women actually would benefit from that message on a fundamental level. And to be told that by people who can look at a cute young girl and be like, you're cute and young, but I'm going to set aside the fact that I want to screw you and actually tell you stuff that's going to be valuable to you as you get older. And I'm going to set aside your whatever social benefit or clout I can get from you, and I'm going to actually say things that will help you as you get older. Those are the people that actually care about women. Let's be honest. Not the people who are constantly weaseling themselves around women's social clout, but the people who tell it to women like it is. All right. Okay, so
well, I guess that's
we
the end
didn't
of the video.
yeah,
so
that's
we can,
we can
okay.
yeah, it's we're ahead of schedule. No, we got a super chow, I think.
I got a super chat. I'll read that. If there's a super chow.
No, there's a super chow there too.
Oh, there is. Okay. Well, Albert Data Retro gave us $5 Canadian and said, "The men who say they support feminism are just trying to get some." Thank you for that. I don't actually buy that though. I will say.
I'll qualify that. Can I qualify that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
They're not necessarily trying to get sex, but they are trying to get social approval.
Yes.
Good.
There you go. I agree with that. I think that it's a bit too dismissive to say that every man that is a male feminist is just doing it to get laid. I've heard Jordan Peterson say it. I don't think it's true. I think it's true sometimes. But I think ultimately it's just like Allison said. Like, they see there is social cachet in defending women. They probably learned it from their mother and they're just doing it again. Or they had a big sister or something, right? So I think that actually it's kind of at the default setting for men to cape for women in general. I think that conservatives do it just as much. So I don't think it's like a male feminist thing. I think that male feminists find another way to get closer to women, but they're doing it for approval more than just getting laid. I think to say that suggests that, I don't know, it's kind of like a bad look for men in general, because feminist women will say that about their own feminist men. They'll say, "Oh, you're just doing this to get in my pants." That's where the whole nice guy TM thing comes from. That feminists used to remember that. Remember nice guy TM? Yep. That's just feminist women dogging on men that are trying to essentially not be their enemy. And they're basically saying, "You're still our enemy. It doesn't matter." Right.
Yeah. Well, so. I think there's a variety of reasons. There may be some guys who are just interested in having sex. There's some guys who want the social clout. There's some guys who do it because they feel it reflects well on themselves because they're the one good man. And then
Yeah.
there's just guys who are just the typical average guy who just wants women to be happy. And there's a lot of men like that, and there's nothing really wrong with it, you
Yep.
know?
It is
Because
the norm.
it would be nice if women just, I don't know, maybe there's a part of women that just wants men to be happy. I mean, certainly there was a lot of points in history where women went out of their way to make men happy. So maybe we could get back to that, and everybody can want everybody else to be happy. Wouldn't that be great? Let's
Wouldn't
just
that be
all
nice?
treat each other with excellently. But all right, and
All
we
right,
do have a super chow.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, I do have a super chow. Unfortunately, I can't display it, but I'll just read it. Great Indoors gave us $10 and says, "Women should be grilled and roasted and served with fava beans and a nice Chianti." Some famous actor on his YouTube cooking channel when Hollywood finally kicks the bucket. All right, thank you, Great Indoors, for the $10 and the Silence of the Lambs reference. Okay, so I think that's it. I looked at Rumble, no Rumble rants there. So kind of a quiet day, but it's all right. It's the Mondays. Do you have any yeah, oh no, we got a decent amount of people watching though. Almost 100. Allison, you're muted. I don't hear you.
Oh shoot. On Rumble or
You're
where?
not muted now.
I know
No,
where.
like if I add up all the numbers. So on YouTube it's like 83. On the vertical, it's like 8. And then on
Oh, okay.
Rumble, there's like 10 more. So it's like 100. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's
On
also
that,
X.
yeah.
Which,
And then on X, there's like 131.
yep.
And there's even one person on Twitch. Hello, Twitch person.
Hi.
I don't know why we don't do well on Twitch. I guess it's because we're not basically
Not
putting
gaming.
we're not putting our boobs up. I think you get more views with boobs. If we should make Pokimane a badger. She'd never become a badger though. She's cancer. All right. Anyway, and I got another super chat from Alberneta. He says Film Threat is doing funeral for a franchise at 21 o'clock tonight. That's what is that? 10, 11? Should be funny regarding Star Wars. Thank you. No interest. Those guys. Well, I mean, whatever. Star Wars died for me when The Force Awakens came out. So.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess we'll do the things, and then everybody, we're going to be doing another recap of House of Dragons because I just watched the latest episode. I can do a really quick summary. It got better. The focus on the women ended, and now the story is significantly better because Hollywood can't write interesting women doing interesting things. It's just impossible for them, apparently. So anyway, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on the latest House of Dragons episode, you can go over to my channel. It's at Gender Addict. That is Gender Erratic. So it's got 2 R's, just 1 T. Or you can do a search on my name, I believe. And join us
just search
there.
Typhon Blue and it'll
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah, and join us there. And we'll be having a discussion of that. Once again, if you want to send us a message at any point after the show, we will respond to it at the next reasonable. Somebody just sent in something, so you might want to.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
see that.
almost got through it. Okay. Yeah.
Wait, I don't see it here. Is it a super chat?
It's I think it's.
Yeah, I see it. It is a super chat from Mr. Playlist Man, who gave us $50. Thank you, Mr. Playlist. That's awesome.
Cool.
And he
Awesome.
says, "Keep up the good work, lady and gent." Thank you, Mr. Playlist Man. Appreciate that. That's amazing.
No problem. Thank you for that. Okay, so if you want to send us a message at any time after the show is over, feedthebadger.com/justthetip is the very best way to send us because we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send. YouTube doesn't take its gigantic bite out of it, and you get the full benefit of sending your comment with a little bit more space to make a comment to us without going through YouTube's comment enhancement system. And of course, if you're on X, we still don't know how you send us comments, so you have to go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And stay tuned to this space because I will be giving you more of an update on what we're doing with the poster, the silk screening poster. That will be an incentive for supporting the show each month. And keep an eye on feedthebadger.com/support for that. All right, back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of, what is this? Maintaining Frame. Yeah, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Are
Allison, you're not supposed to talk. Otherwise, it brings you back here. I'm gonna do the thing again. Okay, go into the outro. Just stay quiet.
are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.